It began not in a glitzy Silicon Valley boardroom, but in a cramped Stanford University dorm room, where two curious minds collided, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. In 1995, Page, a soft-spoken computer science student from Michigan, was considering Stanford for grad school. Brin, a charismatic fellow student assigned to show him around, ended up arguing with him more than welcoming him. Their personalities clashed, but beneath the surface, their minds recognized each other. Both were sons of academics. Larry's father, Carl Page, was a computer science pioneer, and his mother taught programming. Sergey's family had fled Soviet oppression. His father taught mathematics, and his mother was a researcher at NASA. Logic, numbers, and ambition flowed through their veins. But it wasn't just intellect that set them apart, it was curiosity. Their early partnership was chaotic and brilliant. They disagreed constantly but shared a hunger to solve one of the Internet's biggest problems: finding useful information amid an ever-growing sea of digital noise. At the time, search engines were crude. Yahoo was a directory. AltaVista, Lycos, and Excite were overloaded with spammy results. Search wasn't smart, it was dumb, literal, and gained easily. Page and Brin envisioned something radically different. They believed that the structure of the web itself, how pages linked to one another, contained hidden signals of quality. If important pages linked to a site, that site might be important too. It was a simple but revolutionary idea. They called their project Backrub, based on the idea of analyzing backlinks. It crawled the web, recorded link structures, and ranked pages based on reputation. It wasn't just about counting keywords anymore. It was about context. By 1997, the project outgrew its humble name. They needed something bold. They chose Google, a play on Google, the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. It symbolized their ambition to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. But ambition needed more than algorithms. It needed belief, resources, and a place to grow. And in 1998, belief came knocking, in the form of a $100,000 check from Sun Microsystems co-founder Andy Bechtolsheim, who was so impressed with the demo that he wrote the check on the spot. There was only one problem. Google Incorporated didn't exist yet. That check sat in a drawer until Page and Brin formally incorporated the company in a friend's garage in Menlo Park. From that garage, with borrowed servers, borrowed time, and a half-formed dream, they began building a search engine that was faster, cleaner, and smarter than anything the world had seen. But success wasn't guaranteed. Netscape had fallen. Yahoo was dominant. Microsoft was circling. And two grad students with no business experience were about to challenge the entire Internet. Still, in that messy garage, something extraordinary had started. Google wasn't just solving search. It was redefining how knowledge itself would be accessed in the 21st century. And that was only the beginning. The modest Menlo Park garage on Santa Margarita Avenue was more than a workspace. It became the cradle of a digital revolution. With old desks, borrowed equipment, and a Wi-Fi connection that faltered every time someone used the microwave, Larry and Sergey began scaling what they'd initially called Backrub into what would soon become Google. The name itself was a clever play on the mathematical term Google, representing a 1 followed by 100 zeros, a fitting symbol for their ambition to organize the world's information. With little money but massive vision, they knew they needed help. And so, they turned to a family friend of Larry's, Andy Bechtolsheim, co-founder of Sun Microsystems. After a short demo in the driveway of the garage, Bechtolsheim famously wrote a $100,000 check to Google Incorporated, a company that didn't technically exist yet. That check became their ignition. Larry and Sergey scrambled to incorporate Google just to deposit it. With the funds secured, they brought on a small team of engineers and moved out of the garage into their first real office, shared space in Palo Alto. It was cramped, chaotic, and fueled by caffeine and whiteboards covered in mathematical scribbles. But momentum was building. Every day, their search engine answered more queries, and every day, it improved, smarter, faster, cleaner. What set Google apart wasn't just its speed or accuracy. It was the PageRank algorithm, a system that ranked results not just by keywords, but by how important a page was based on how many other pages linked to it. The more credible the page, the higher it ranked. It was a digital meritocracy, and people loved it. By mid-1999, Google was handling 500,000 search queries per day. Investors began paying attention. That summer, they secured $25 million in funding from Sequoia Capital and Kleiner Perkins, two of Silicon Valley's most respected venture capital firms. The bet was bold, but it was paying off. As the team expanded, so did their culture. Unlike traditional tech firms, Google was quirky, colorful, and youthfully chaotic. Lava lamps lit meeting rooms. Dogs roamed the hallways. Free snacks and Friday beer bashes weren't perks. They were part of a belief that work should feel like a playground for the mind. Yet beneath the whimsy was relentless pressure to scale. Google's clean homepage was hiding an exponentially growing infrastructure. Hundreds of servers. Massive cooling systems. And a burning question: how could they turn this brilliant engine into a sustainable business model? They had no ads. No products to sell. Just a clean search box that brought the world closer to answers. And that's when they made a choice that would change everything, not just for Google, but for the future of the Internet itself. It was a pivotal moment. Google had built the best search engine on the Internet, lightning fast, eerily accurate, and trusted by a growing wave of users. But behind that pristine white homepage was a financial question no one could ignore. How would Google make money? At first, Larry and Sergey resisted the idea of advertising altogether. They believed ads could distort results and compromise user trust. "We want to do the right thing," they insisted. But as their server bills soared into the hundreds of thousands per month, the need for a revenue model became undeniable. So, instead of cluttering search results with flashy banners like their competitors, Google chose something radical, relevant, text-based ads that appeared discreetly alongside results, only when they matched the searcher's intent. No distractions. No trickery. Just useful suggestions. They called it AdWords. Launched in 2000, AdWords allowed businesses to bid on keywords and display short, targeted ads next to search results. What made it revolutionary was the model: pay-per-click. Advertisers only paid when someone clicked their ad. Combined with Google's advanced targeting, this created an engine of precision marketing that had never been seen before. The results were staggering. Suddenly, small businesses in Kansas could compete with corporations in New York. A local plumber could advertise to someone Googling "leaky faucet fix" with a few dollars and see immediate results. Every click was measurable. Every ad could be optimized. It wasn't just advertising, it was data-driven commerce. And the cash started rolling in. By 2001, Google was profitable. By 2003, AdWords had become the heartbeat of the company, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually. That same year, they expanded the model into AdSense, allowing website owners to embed Google Ads and earn revenue from their own content. The web itself became a network of monetized relevance. But success brought new pressures. The company was growing at breakneck speed, and it needed structure, leadership, and strategic direction. In 2001, Larry and Sergey made a decision that surprised many. They hired Eric Schmidt as CEO. A seasoned executive with experience at Novell and Sun Microsystems, Schmidt brought order to the chaos, helping to scale operations while letting the founders focus on product and vision. Together, this trio formed an unusual but powerful leadership team: two brilliant, idealistic engineers and a pragmatic, politically savvy CEO. The triumvirate, as insiders called them, would steer Google through the next critical phase of its rise. As 2004 approached, Google had become much more than a search engine. It was a profitable, fast-growing force, commanding over 85% of the world's search traffic and redefining what advertising looked like in the digital age. The world was watching. And now, it was time for Google to go public, to open its doors to Wall Street, and in doing so, confront the full glare of capitalism. But Larry and Sergey had no intention of doing it the usual way. By the early 2010s, Google was no longer just a tech company. It had become a cultural symbol, an economic powerhouse, and a political player. The phrase, "Google it," was now a verb in the Oxford English Dictionary, and the company's Android operating system had taken the lead in the global smartphone market, eclipsing Apple's iOS in volume. Gmail had surpassed Yahoo Mail. Chrome was the fastest-growing web browser. YouTube was drawing more daily viewers than many cable TV networks combined. But with this sweeping influence came unprecedented scrutiny. The antitrust clouds gathered first in Europe. In 2010, the European Commission began investigating Google for allegedly favoring its own services in search results. A series of fines followed, eventually amounting to billions of euros. In the United States, regulators were slower to act, but questions about Google's market dominance, particularly in digital advertising and search, began to percolate in Congress. Meanwhile, inside the Googleplex, the company's unofficial motto, "Don't be evil," started to sound less like a promise and more like a challenge. The company's experiments were expanding rapidly. Google Glass, a futuristic wearable device, captured headlines in 2012, but also ignited privacy debates. While the product faltered commercially, it was a harbinger of things to come, a world where data, cameras, and computing would be omnipresent. More quietly, Google was laying the foundations for something even more consequential, the rise of artificial intelligence. Acquiring DeepMind in 2014, a British AI research company, was a pivotal moment. DeepMind's team, led by Demis Hassabis, soon made headlines by creating AlphaGo, the first AI to defeat a world champion in the complex game of Go. It wasn't just a victory in gaming. It was a signal flare to the world that AI was not science fiction anymore. It was here, and Google was at the helm. But the internal culture was shifting. In 2015, Google announced a corporate restructuring, creating a parent company called Alphabet Incorporated. Larry Page became CEO of Alphabet, while Sundar Pichai, a soft-spoken engineer from India who had quietly led the Chrome and Android teams, was named CEO of Google. The goal was to keep the main business lean while allowing moonshots, like self-driving cars, Waymo, smart contact lenses, delivery drones, and life extension projects to flourish under Alphabet's umbrella. It was an ambitious plan to future-proof the company. Yet not all was smooth sailing. Internally, Google employees began to raise ethical concerns about some of these futuristic pursuits. In 2018, when news broke that Google had a contract with the Pentagon, Project Maven, which used AI to analyze drone footage, thousands of Googlers protested. Some resigned. The company eventually withdrew from the project, but the incident revealed a growing internal rift, a workforce that still believed in building for the good of all, and a leadership increasingly enmeshed in geopolitical and corporate complexity. Even more controversy brewed over Project Dragonfly, a censored search engine reportedly being developed for China. Again, employees rebelled. Advocacy groups spoke out. Politicians demanded answers. In 2019, Google said it had, effectively ended, the project. By the close of the decade, Google stood at a crossroads. It had built one of the most impressive business empires in history, transformed how the world learned, communicated, and navigated, but it was now grappling with its own influence, responsibilities, and contradictions. And looming over everything was a new wave of technological transformation, driven not by search, not by mobile, but by algorithms that could learn, adapt, and even outthink their creators. Google's next chapter wouldn't just be about organizing the world's information. It would be about understanding it, predicting it, and perhaps, one day, controlling it. By August 2004, the transformation of Google from a quirky startup to a global phenomenon became official. The company went public, trading under the ticker symbol Google, and raising over $1.6 billion. It was a moment that crystallized the shift happening in Silicon Valley, a new era where information, not infrastructure, became the new oil. But even as Google entered Wall Street, it did so with its own rebellious twist. The IPO was run through an unusual Dutch auction system, aimed at democratizing stock ownership and allowing regular investors a fair shot, yet another signal that this was not a company eager to play by the old rules. Their founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, published a now famous letter from the founders, embedded in the S-1 filing. In it they wrote, "Google is not a conventional company. We do not intend to become one." They promised to protect the company's mission, prioritize users, and maintain a long-term vision even if it meant sacrificing quarterly gains. It was bold. It was idealistic. And for many, it was inspiring. But being public came with strings attached. Now accountable to shareholders, analysts, and the relentless pressures of quarterly earnings, Google began walking a tightrope: growth versus values. Meanwhile, the company was exploding with talent. Some of the best engineers in the world lined up to join. Projects like Google Maps, Google News, and Google Books took shape. Each pushed the company deeper into people's everyday lives. More than a search engine, Google was becoming a gateway to the entire digital world. Yet with size came scrutiny. Governments and privacy watchdogs started asking tough questions. Was it safe for one company to know so much? Critics warned of a growing monopoly. Internally, some employees raised ethical concerns as Google expanded into sensitive domains, like scanning books without permission, or storing user data at a massive scale. Even the company's famous motto, "Don't be evil," began to feel like both a promise and a challenge. Could they stay true to it while scaling to serve billions? By 2006, another defining moment arrived. Google acquired YouTube for $1.65 billion, a jaw-dropping move at the time. The acquisition wasn't just a bet on video. It was a bet on the future of the Internet as an immersive, participatory medium. Many saw it as risky. Google saw it as essential. And it paid off. YouTube would soon become not just the largest video platform in the world, but a cultural and political force in its own right. But with great influence came great responsibility and increasing controversy. By the end of the 2000s, Google had grown from a startup into a digital colossus. Billions of searches. Billions of dollars. Billions of eyes watching. What began as a project in a Stanford dorm room had evolved into an engine that indexed the world's information, predicted trends, mapped entire continents, and even helped people find their way home. But with that reach came a new kind of attention. Governments, corporations, civil rights groups, journalists, and citizens started looking harder at what Google was, and what it was becoming. Round pushpin the China conflict. In 2006, Google made one of its most controversial decisions. It launched a censored version of its search engine in China under the domain google.cn. The logic was pragmatic: better to offer a limited service to Chinese users than none at all. But the backlash in the West was fierce. Critics said Google had betrayed its "Don't be evil" motto. Lawmakers in the US accused it of bowing to authoritarianism. Human rights groups condemned it. Employees debated furiously within the company walls. Then came Operation Aurora in 2009, a cyber attack originating from China that targeted Google and other US companies. Google alleged that Chinese hackers had tried to access the Gmail accounts of human rights activists. That was the breaking point. In 2010, Google shut down google.cn and redirected users to the uncensored Hong Kong version. The move severed its relationship with the Chinese government, perhaps permanently. It also marked a turning point. Google wasn't just a tech company anymore. It was a geopolitical player, locked with the privacy reckoning. At the same time, concerns about user privacy started boiling over. Google tracked search histories, location data, browsing habits, and more, data that allowed it to target ads with stunning precision. Some praised this as smart personalization. Others saw it as surveillance capitalism. The introduction of Google Street View brought a wave of backlash. While many marveled at being able to virtually tour streets around the world, privacy advocates asked, what happens when you capture someone sunbathing in their backyard, or entering a clinic? Lawsuits piled up in Europe and Asia. In 2012, the European Union forced Google to simplify and clarify its privacy policy under pressure from regulators. But trust had been dented. And that same year, Google announced the merging of user data across its services, Gmail, YouTube, Maps, and Android. It made things more seamless, but also raised questions. How much did Google really know about each individual? And who else could access that information? Collision inside the company, culture shifts. Internally, Google's famously open and experimental culture was evolving. With thousands of employees and layers of management, some old-timers worried that creativity was giving way to bureaucracy. The introduction of OKRs, objectives and key results, kept the company focused. But it also created pressure. Google was now a public company with massive expectations. The stakes were higher. The tolerance for failure, lower. Some celebrated this as maturation. Others mourned the loss of the quirky startup spirit. Yet, amid the criticism, there were bright lights. Google continued pushing boundaries with self-driving cars, Google Glass, and moonshot projects from the mysterious X Lab, each reminding the world that the company hadn't lost its appetite for the impossible. Satellite antenna dominance and antitrust. By 2010, Google controlled 2/3 of the U.S. search market. Chrome was winning the browser war. Android was taking over smartphones. Google Ads was outpacing all competitors. That success drew the attention of regulators. Antitrust investigations were launched in the US and Europe, questioning whether Google was abusing its power, favoring its own services and search results, undercutting competitors, and building an ecosystem that locked users in. The company denied wrongdoing. But the perception began to shift. Once seen as a helpful librarian of the web, Google was increasingly viewed as the gatekeeper, and gatekeeper came with a heavier burden. Globe showing Europe-Africa a global stage. Google was now entangled with every major issue of the modern age. Censorship in authoritarian states. Free speech versus platform moderation. Digital monopolies. Surveillance and security. The automation of jobs. AI ethics. It wasn't just a search engine anymore. It was the platform through which billions experienced the world, and increasingly, how the world experienced them. The world was watching, and Google knew it. As the 2010s unfolded, Google entered a new era, the era of artificial intelligence. The company had long been experimenting with machine learning to improve search rankings and ad targeting. But now AI was no longer just a tool to refine products, it was becoming the very core of Google's future. Roba faced the AI awakening. In 2012, a breakthrough came when Google researchers won the ImageNet competition, a landmark challenge in image recognition, using deep neural networks. This success propelled Google's commitment to AI from a side project to a central mission. Google acquired DeepMind in 2014, a British startup focused on advanced AI research. This move marked a turning point, from improving existing services to pioneering technologies that could change humanity's relationship with machines. Speaking head Google Assistant and the AI race. Google launched Google Assistant in 2016, a voice-activated AI assistant that could understand natural language, answer questions, control smart home devices, and learn user preferences. It was a direct challenge to Amazon's Alexa and Apple's Siri. The competition was fierce. Alexa was rapidly gaining market share with its integration into smart speakers and devices, while Siri remained limited by Apple's ecosystem. Google's vast data and AI expertise gave Assistant a powerful edge, but the fight for dominance in voice-controlled AI was only beginning. Balanced scale ethics and internal struggles. With AI's power growing, so did concerns about its ethical use. In 2018, Google employees protested the company's involvement in Project Maven, a Pentagon program using AI to analyze drone footage for military targeting. Workers worried that Google's AI could be used for lethal purposes, conflicting with the company's motto to do no evil. After internal backlash, Google announced it would not renew the contract. This episode highlighted a new reality. Google's role was no longer just commercial but deeply political and moral. Employees demanded transparency and accountability in AI development. Brain DeepMind and AI milestones. DeepMind achieved spectacular successes, most famously with AlphaGo, which in 2016 defeated the world champion at the complex game of Go, a feat once thought decades away. This victory was more than a game. It showed that AI could master intuition and strategy in domains humans excel at, raising hopes and fears about what AI might achieve next. DeepMind's work expanded to healthcare, energy efficiency, and scientific discovery, embodying Google's broader vision to use AI for solving intelligence and, ultimately, complex global problems. Globe with Meridian's AI's expanding reach. Google integrated AI across all products, smarter search results, better translation, real-time speech recognition, advanced photo recognition, and personalized content recommendations on YouTube. But the rise of AI also intensified debates about misinformation, algorithmic bias, and privacy. As AI shaped what people saw online, concerns mounted about transparency and fairness. Google found itself balancing innovation with responsibility, under the scrutiny of governments, users, and its own workforce. Crystal ball: the future beckons. By the end of the decade, Google was no longer just a search engine or an ad company. It was a pioneer on the frontier of human-machine interaction, grappling with the profound implications of AI. The challenges ahead were immense: ensuring AI served humanity's best interests, maintaining trust, and navigating geopolitical tensions around technology dominance. Google's story was now inseparable from the story of AI itself. Entering the mid-2020s, Google found itself at the heart of a rapidly evolving AI ecosystem. The race to harness artificial intelligence for transformative impact had accelerated, and no company could dominate alone. Handshake collaboration as a strategy. Recognizing the scale and complexity of AI challenges, Google embraced collaboration more openly than ever before. It partnered with academic institutions, startups, and even competitors to advance AI research responsibly. Initiatives like TensorFlow, an open-source machine learning platform, empowered developers worldwide to build and innovate, spreading Google's AI influence far beyond its own walls. Boxing glove competition heats up. At the same time, Google faced fierce competition from new and established players. Companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, and others pushed boundaries with their own advanced models, prompting Google to double down on speed and scale. This intense rivalry sparked rapid innovation but also fueled debates about AI safety, misinformation, and the concentration of technological power. Balanced scale: balancing innovation and regulation. Regulators around the globe continued refining frameworks to govern AI's development and deployment. Google actively engaged in policy discussions, advocating for balanced rules that would protect users without stifling innovation. The company rolled out more transparent AI systems, improved explainability of its models, and invested in tools to detect and mitigate harmful content. Globe with Meridian's expanding AI's reach. Google's AI technology became embedded deeper into everyday life, powering smarter cities, personalized education, healthcare diagnostics, and even creative arts. Yet with greater impact came greater responsibility. Google acknowledged the need to ensure that AI advances benefited society broadly, reducing inequalities rather than exacerbating them. Rocket the road ahead. As Google looked forward, it saw AI not just as a technology but as a fundamental force shaping humanity's future. The challenge was clear: how to lead this transformation ethically, inclusively, and sustainably. Google's journey from a humble search engine startup in a Stanford dorm room to a global technology leader is a story of relentless innovation, bold vision, and enduring challenges. Glowing Star: a legacy of innovation. Over more than 2 decades, Google transformed how billions of people access information, communicate, and live. Its groundbreaking algorithms, cloud platforms, and AI technologies reshaped entire industries, from advertising and entertainment to healthcare and education. Balanced scale navigating complex challenges. But this journey was never without controversy. Google grappled with issues of privacy, data security, ethical use of AI, and the responsibilities that come with immense power. Through these trials, the company evolved, striving to be more transparent, accountable, and aligned with public interest. Globe showing Europe Africa a global responsibility. Today, Google stands not just as a tech giant but as a steward of technology's impact on society. It recognizes the profound influence it holds and embraces a mission to develop AI and other innovations in ways that uplift humanity, protect rights, and foster inclusion. Crystal ball looking forward. The future is full of promise and uncertainty. As AI continues to advance, Google's role will be pivotal, balancing innovation with ethics, opportunity with caution. Its story reminds us that technology is ultimately shaped by the people who create and govern it, and that with vision and care, it can be a powerful force for good.